nicely displayed here. So the division of work and how we perceive the world is actually can be really broken down into two big chunks, parts and ways of understanding. The first one is the ordering part. It's like the analytical part, the brain, the accuracy, logic, strategic, science, control. And the other part, which conquers the unknown, which goes against the chaos, the stuff we don't know yet. And how we try to tackle this is, for example, with passion, with vividity, with creativeness. It's kind of yearning to go there into the unknown, into the darkness, into the chaos. And in order to find some peace, freedom and love. Yeah, it sounds very, very far-fetched and big, but bear with me. Yes, no, stay there. Stay there, go back. So why is mental health so heavily correlated to these two big topics, to the order and the chaos? It is the best way of approaching life is if you use your full brain, right? So if you're only living in one side, in the order part, and not being challenged too much with new experiences, then you suffer some kind of lack, something where you feel like not getting enough experience, not going into the unknown enough. Or if you're going too much into the unknown, if you're just trying to tackle all the time new things without getting some kind of security, order, then you're going to get lost in too many possibilities. Too much of chaos, so to say. And H.P. Lovecraft very nicely said, the oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear. And the oldest and strongest kind of fear is fear of the unknown. And by understanding this quote, maybe you can also understand why it is so important that we have this division of labor in this brain, so to say. You have one foot like in the safety of your daily structures, your home, your relationships, your work, and on the other side, you need to be able to conquer the unknown, to conquer the things that make you fear, so to say. But why should you do that? Think about how our brains developed. They surely did not develop in the last 6,000 years of civilization. It's way older. It's more than 100,000 years, even millions of years, some circuitries, if you think about the evolution. And imagine the situation in a village back in the days. Hunters and gatherers sitting around in a bonfire. And that is your security, that is your order, that's what you know. But all around, there's chaos, there's darkness. You don't know what's happening in the forest. Could be a predator, could be a snake, could be everything that tackles you and sparks fear in you. But there's potential. You need to go into the unknown, because there you find resources, there you find new ideas, there you find foods, different things which help you to survive. So much for the overarching theme. It's the deep need for change. And actually you can very nicely compare it with, one slide next please. Maybe I should go this way, no, go this side. The yin and yang is nothing else than actually the division of our labor in our brains. The one side is the positive sun, the sun side, the active light, the day, so to say, regeneration, and the darkness at night, the chaos, the order, the water, which will be also a common theme in the next slide, the growth. That is the other side. And why there are even a dot in each is that both sides inform each other. So that's why our brains talk to each other. Actually through a very small string. It's not that they are heavily connected. There's one line which makes them talk to each other, and that's how they inform each other and build each other up. So it's like the art of progression is always the art of regression, right? 2 steps forward, 1 step back, like dancing, if you want to say so. And there's nothing wrong with light and darkness as long as both work together. So that as you also you can think about common themes in popular culture like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Cain and Abel, the white wolf, the black wolf in a sense. Both somehow refer to our dark side also. But the dark side is not only bad as long as it's being encapsulated and integrated with the light side, right? So where's light, there's shadow. So, no. So how unaware are we actually of our darkness? The last time in the 10% time I already showed this iceberg theory. It's like that 10% of our conscious mind is being engaged with what you're doing right now, the willpower, decision making, thinking logically, like you are listening to me right now, I am presenting, this is consciousness. But 90%, most of the time, the real showrunner is the subconscious mind and the unconscious mind. It's like where the phobias and addiction lie, where traumatic stored events are, you and your life in general, the overall bigger picture. And one important sentence here, which will be now important for the next slides, is that the data you have to dig to assess. So the more you get aware of what is lurking down there, the more it gets in your consciousness, the more you get a hold on and grab onto it. Then you really understand a little bit more about yourself and can change behavior, which you cannot if it's unconscious and subconscious. Lies in the definition of the term. And one slide next, please. I just love that image. It so nicely shows the iceberg theory I just laid across. And that is actually what really good art does. It speaks to us on so many different levels that we are, first of all, not always aware about the levels. The art speaks to us, and they even sometimes don't even talk to each other. But when you see it like this, that's where the knowledge lies. 90%, subconscious, unconscious. And the more you make it aware, the more you can become one of the persons who, if the catastrophe, the terror, the drama, the apocalyptic monsters, when they come, then you can stay afloat, because they have the books in their hand. They became aware of their unconscious, so they can stay afloat even if the Titanic sinks. So I really love that image. Okay. Before we dive now into the shadow topic as a full, may I ask of you, who have watched the video before? I know, Ruba, you did? Other people? So
which one? Because there were two videos on the web. Like one was like 30 seconds or 40 seconds.
No, not the trailer. The one was surely a trailer, and the other one the full video. Yeah. How did you feel about it?
Yeah, good question. It's unsettling.
Very good topic. Very good term.
It actually just made me curious what this thought is going to be.
It's good. It sparked interest. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you, maybe?
It's hard, like, to really describe. I mean, you need to know these kinds of stuff to understand what he means.
Not necessarily, but it spoke to you on a certain level, just as really good art does.
Yeah, of course.
Unsettling. Very nice, because something it speaks to something in you, but you cannot get a grasp on it, you cannot get a hold on it, but something gets touched in your inner deepmost core. So yeah, it's good. It was a good sneak preview. So maybe people get interested to watch it after the talk. Yeah, it's about the monster in us, so to say. It's the monsters in the ocean, and the reason why I'm doing this is also there's a real utility in knowing that there are monsters, and actually that you are one of these monsters, and that they are part of you. Just as in the big 5 topic I gave in the 10% time, it will get a little bit abstract now, but bear with me, and if there are any questions you can ask all the time. So, come now with me into the unknown territory, and let us kindle a light in the darkness of mere being of your subconscious. Is there something down below actually? No. Why I'm doing this also? Always start with the why, right? Simon Sinek, the leadership guy, who said always start with the why. And why would I do that? Why should you even confront your most darkest parts of your personality? Because there's real gold to be attained. So what's the use? The use is that, first of all, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Or as Nietzsche put it, become who you are. Or one of my favorite scientists, Joseph Campbell, he said, the goal of a lifetime is to make your heartbeat match with the beat of the universe. To match your nature with nature. But this can only be done on a really, really true, deep and profound level by confronting one's own shadow and one's own dark side. Go on, please. So what is this you, in a sense? What sounds weird, it's very abstract, like you, I am me, right? Don't be so sure about it. Because as we saw, 90% is subconscious. So maybe we are not really aware of like who we really are. And Carl Gustav Jung, one big term in his whole concept is the term of individuation. And the individuation is not a process of improvement or getting better, but becoming more you. Getting more to your own core, like who you really are. In the most positive aspects, by the way. So I don't say that if you confront your shadow and you just live it out, that is the way to go. You should encapsulate it in a healthy, mature way. And one more, please. This can be done by being really aware of the different aspects of your personality. Think about, lay over the iceberg now. The iceberg is more or less here, like with the ego. So there's the outer world, everything we see on the outer world, our persona, our mask. So if you watch the video again, masks all the time. You get to see all the time masks. And this is how you think you are in a sense. Like the best, I am so great, it's like a suit you put on in the morning to go out and everybody sees that suit. But that's your mask, that's your persona. A little bit below that is your ego. So often, right, the ego runs the show, don't get too egocentrical, and we all can relate to some kind of concept when we speak about the ego. And the inner world, the deepest depth of the iceberg, so to say, then consists of the feminine side and the male side of your psychology, the shadow, which we will talk about after the slide, and the self. This is the you, the real you. And when you encapsulate everything together, your personal unconsciousness with the collective unconsciousness, with the overall unconsciousness, together with the shadow, your deepest parts, and your persona and your ego, and if you unified it in a healthy, constructive, thorough way, then you're reaching your you, your real true self, your healthy potential, your mature psychology. And the way Carl Gustav Jung also described it was like the purpose of a lifetime is becoming who you are, and you do this by circumventing. So there's no direct way to it. I mean, if it would be that easy, it wouldn't be that hard to cope with the shadow. So it's like, who am I? It's not me. It's not. It's throughout the lifetime. You, at some point, hopefully, if you really are able and want to do the emotional and spiritual and moral work in order to do that, some point you will reach the center, if it's possible. Yeah, but it takes a lot of work. Lot of this is, for example, also about delayed gratification. So no instant consumption. So that you invest, like circumventing, and someday you will gain the benefits of what you have done. But surely not the modern life in terms of just video games, just fast food, just, all the negative stuff which sometimes in our culture prevents us from really reflecting on who we are. Okay, questions about this? No? Then yes, please.
Is this session recorded?
Yes.
So it will be available to see later as well?
Yes. I hope, yeah. Is it working? Yeah, is it? Yes. Oh. Okay, so what is the shadow? Talking about here all the time. The shadow is a moral problem that challenges the whole ego personality. For no one can become conscious of the shadow without considerable moral effort. And to become conscious of it involves recognizing the dark aspects of your personality as present and real. They are there all the time. Just depends how aware we are of them. And this act of recognizing it and this challenging act, so to say, is essential. It's an essential condition for any kind of self-knowledge. So that's how you can start circumventing, by confronting your darkest part. And I really like the background of this image. There's a button being shown, like button holds stuff together, Knopf auf Deutsch. And it's like the light side with the dark side being held together to make one good union. So that's why the button is there. And imagine, like, challenge your whole moral problem. And now get an idea of back in the days, when in Nazi Germany, for example. Jung called the disastrous time and the bad acts people did the collective shadow and the individual shadow. And now imagine yourself in that time, being an Auschwitz guard, and not being a guard, but also enjoying it maybe. That is the dark thinking. But are you sure that you wouldn't have participated? Are you really sure that you wouldn't be so ideologically possessed by all the propaganda and everybody around you that you just wouldn't say, no, I would not do this? Would you be one of the Scholl brothers or like Schindler to really rescue people, or would you just at least went along and not act against it, because acting against it would have mean like life threatening, right? It's like, even if you have spoken against it, then you could have been not an inhabitant of the camps and not a guard. Or look up Japanese Unit 731. Real trigger warning. So one of the worst things humans did to other humans when the Japanese invaded China. Can I scroll down here a little bit, because I sometimes
Try. Yeah.
And so to say, to sum that up, you cannot be a good person until you integrated the shadow aspects of your person in your overall psychology in a healthy way. So that is the concept, if you want to break it now down. But what is the shadow?
And where's it going?
Well, that's so light, shadow. It's spooky. What is the shadow? They are all your aggressive impulses, taboo mental images, shameful experiences, immoral urges, fears, irrational wishes, unacceptable sexual desires. And these are just a few examples of the shadow aspects and the things people contain but do not admit themselves that they contain. But why? Why would we have such things? Why is there something where we really push it so far ahead? Where's this darkness coming from? Living together would be quite hard if everybody would just act on their dark impulses, right? So also imagine the origin of the shadow lies back in tribal times. It was mandatory for survival. I mean, nowadays you can act like an asshole and just move to another city and then you start all over. Back in the days, live in a village. If the village expels you, you're very likely going to die. So that is so deeply ingrained into us that we are so social animals that the one thing we try to avoid all the time, like on a subconscious level, is getting expelled from the tribe, from the village, because then you're going to die. And it's a matter of protection. Why there is this kind of mechanic that you can suppress it so far ahead. Good. Press again.
Every time the door opens.
I think it's light in that meeting room. When somebody turns on or off the light in there, this one freaks out.
That's why the switches as well, right? So
This visibility is just good. Oh, okay. I like it better because then you can look better at the slides. Sure. Of course, don't worry. Wait, let me help you.
Thank you.
Don't worry, I clean up better.
Thank you.
Of course. Next slide, please. So what kind of behaviors? I will show now 7 different kinds of behaviors which really nicely show how people act out their shadows in an unconscious manner, not integrated in your overall psychology. The first one is the tendency to harshly judge other people or yourself, and especially if the judgment comes on an impulse. This word is very important. Every time it comes like on an impulse, like on a really deep down from the depths of the iceberg, and you just blur it out, like in the beginning, this image of the shadow, where you can see the darkness like vomiting it nearly out. And I have a very good example from my own career where I really acted out my shadow in a very unhealthy and not integrated manner. The company I was working before, actually, I haven't told HR until I got my permanent contract, because it was better strategy, was that I got an immediate cancellation of my contract due to bad behavior. It was the thing that it was a very small startup. The owner of the startup was super exploitative, super abusive with all the colleagues. And you know, I'm a very social guy. There's a reason why I'm also being in the working council. I try to protect and help people. Also worked many years in the health industry. So I was trying to protect the colleagues. Like, you're not going to talk to them like this. And instead of making it smart and just ripping it apart in a totally calm and nice manner of asking him, do you really think this is how you should act your colleagues towards your other colleagues? Don't you think there's a better and efficient way? No. The moment he acted out, I acted out. Why are you talking to your colleagues? How can you dare? And then he's like, oh, I'm the boss. I don't mind. You don't talk to other people like that. I don't mind if you pay my salary or not. That's something I cannot accept. So even if I had good intentions, not having my shadow integrated, just blurted out. And of course, in the end, we ended up in court. We got a good deal. But always, when it comes down on an impulse, so it's not only about good and bad, but really how it's integrated. Or at GameViewer, when I was working there, and I had problems with the management because they were talking all the time. Yeah, we need to develop our people and train them. And when I was a team lead and wanted some budget for some training, and they didn't want to pay it, I was like, God damn it! I was very, very easily agitated when it came down to that. They don't want to pay 1,000 euro for one of my best men, but you pay 1,000 euro for the chairs? Yeah, I really went at that at the CFO. At some point in the conference, I even asked the colleague, can you please guarantee a stand between me and the CFO, because I cannot guarantee that I just jump at his throat. That guy also on the other side wanted to jump at me. Yeah, or another good example from our times when we worked together. I just mentioned credit cards, right? Because, this companies, this big companies, this abusive financial companies, like, this impulse, getting down and vomiting my dark energy out instead of like seeing both sides, like light and dark, and not only the darkness of everything. And then I came home with that energy. Yeah, so no wonder my relationship broke down. It was just not good. So that was really important for me to understand and to integrate and fully get my hold on myself, and not like just acting out this constant unintegrated shadow aspects of my personality. Yeah, please. And everybody knows road raging, right? So it happens easily. It's also like this impulse thing, especially because you're tense, it's dangerous, you're in a car, everything gets magnified, and then somebody crosses your line and you just jump at him, or you get jumped at. Everybody at some point surely had an experience like this. And but there's also some utility then. Never forget the utility of the whole thing. So I'm not talking about that everything is bad, everything is really mean about it. There's a sense of survival always behind it. When I do it like this energy which goes out will grab your attention. And there's also, imagine you're again, tribal times, Hunters and gatherers. If somebody yells like this, wow, there's something, then everybody will look at it. So for rescue, it could be snake, could be a predator, so there's utility in that. And also, it is so deeply ingrained in most of us, of the animals, and also in us, that if there's a monkey in a cage who never saw a snake from a zoo or something, who never was exposed to a snake, you can throw a snake in, he will jump back, yell in his monkey language like snake, snake, so that he can warn around the other monkeys. And that also does not only happen to monkeys, it happens to cats. Just put the cucumber behind the cat, and the moment the cat moves, will jump up, because it thinks it's a snake, even if it never saw a snake. Rats, the same. If a rat goes out, smells a cat, runs back to the nest and screams in his rat voice that there is a cat around. Just a tiny bit. And just one last example which really blew my mind because it was so interesting to hear. We all know the disease of Tourette, right? You heard it, that somebody is just guttering out, cannot help himself, and is using swear words. All the time swear words. Why swear words? Why not saying lamp, or laptop, laptop, laptop? It's always a swear word. Because there's a deeply ingrained logo circuitry in us which wrongly fires at that time. So that's something you cannot control in that man. That's why it's swear words. That are these high energetic, everybody needs to look words. Because it's a warning symbol of somebody in the tribe sees something and the other body gets warmed and they jump back. Okay, questions about this? No. Then let's go on. Number 2, pointing out one's own insecurities as flaws in another. Yes, we all surely would have seen that. That's easier to point our flaws in other people than oneself. And if you go one more forth, you will see a nice picture everybody can relate to.
Next.
Yes. Trolls, or comment sections nowadays. People feel super secure, anonymous, nothing can happen to me, so this impulse. You can also see the the overlapping symptoms and the overlapping behavior. This is pointing out other insecurities and flaws on an impulse. So you harshly judge also. So it's very closely related and together. And one more please. Also very nicely encapsulated in that art. This is nowadays comment section sometimes. Gets so bad that many companies disable comment sections for good because they tend to get uncontrollable. You need to hire a group of people in order to go through the darkness of other people on a daily basis. Well, there was a nice documentary just recently, Felipe told me, about Facebook people who do this. Yeah, that's not a job you can do for very long. If you dig down the darkness and try to censor it, it's very, very shocking. Yes. And matter of fact, there's a whole industry behind it, pointing out other people's insecurities and flaws. And once I was at a friend, sitting on the toilet, handy not there, and see, oh, from his sister. And okay, well, just grab it. And it's really awful, but something grabs you in there, like, oh, Madonna goes out without taking out the trash without makeup? Oh my god, it's super weird. And also there, it's part of identity politics, right? Or peer group making, so that you distinct yourself from others. So that's where it's maybe coming from also. And Russell Brand once made a nice joke that also back in tribal times, when you're sitting together on a fire, the one main topic would be how stupid are the people from the other fire. So one more, and it gets more clearer in this image. So also like our glorious leader and their wicked discord, our great religion and their primitive superstition is part of nationalism. And also here can be very bad if you act upon it in a not integrated manner. But it also fills in a need, like for identity and orientation, because this is my group, these are my people, this is who I am, I'm belonging to this. But if you act upon it like I'm so much better than them, then it's not integrated. But if it's integrated, it's like I am this and they are that. It's good, both are great. And just at the duality of light and darkness and yin and yang again, right? So both sides. The one cannot exist without the other. And another possible behavior, a quick temper with people in subordinate positions of power, because the people cannot fight back. For example, like comment section, just anonymous, that's why they do it. And a good example would be, one more, I think many people saw that following you. That. Yeah, some years ago, well, it even sparked a lot of memes where that guy was walking around, was spraying everything. And just imagine, like subordinate power. If one of the students would have stood up against him, all the other policemen would have grabbed him and chained him and put him directly to prison. So there was no possibility for him to fight back, because subordinate power. And the way, when you watch the video, how it was like, he was like, nothing can happen to me. So really not nicely integrated shadow in a sense, instead of maybe talking to them, maybe, I don't know, I don't know what his orders were, but it happens often. And nowadays also with Black Lives Matter, when many people got shot, it's often that police often felt in superior. And that's why they thought, look, why don't you shoot him? So the statistics are quite clear there. Okay. And domestic violence could be a good example, when men feel so much superior to the woman because the woman cannot fight back due to their physical maybe strength, but also also other way around. So a man is very weak and the woman gets passive aggressive against him. It can also happen that she goes into her shadow and acts that out. Okay. Number 4, frequently playing the victim of every situation. Yes. A little bit like I gave the example in the beginning from my former companies, I felt also victimized. Like this management, and just because of them, I could have worked so much better if I wouldn't be the victim of their stupid decisions. So again, this correlation, this overlapping. And the next image, please. Yesterday, when I was dry running this talk with Anton, had a weird example with archetypes and was more or less sidetracking. And then I came up with another idea. And somebody recognizes what this is? It's the Tower of Babel. And the Tower of Babel stands as a metaphor for things which go too big and corrupt due to that. So there should be nothing that is too big to fail. So how does that relate to the victimhood topic? The one thing the left and the right nowadays got right is that things get too big sometimes. Monopolies get created. The right thinks the state is too big, should be smaller. The left thinks the companies are getting too big and should get smaller. And by doing so, they often go into some kind of victimhood, like, oh, just because the company is exploring the planet, or the state is regulating everything and the economy cannot grow as it should. Both have the one big thing right. It's things getting too big. So there should be nothing that is too big to fail, like angst, I think. So this I'm a victim, so I have to fight back narrative is very, very tempting for many people. They feel like, wow, now I can act out the darkness. Now I finally have a reason to kill people because I'm such a victim and they have attacked me first. It's a common trope in the right-wing immigration crisis that people think like, oh, it's like this is coming and now I need to fight back because they take all the jobs and you know, you all heard about this bad, stupid arguments. But relatable to the shadow energy. And the very recent actual topic just happened some days or some weeks ago in the Berlin schools here is an 11-year-old got bullied so much that she died due to a suicide attempt. And one of the things why she was bullied or how they treated her was it's a common insult to call, the children call each other Opfer. Victim. Like, can you imagine? That's instead of when you hear the word, oh, victim, oh, how can I help? Would be the healthy integrated way. No. Victim, open season. Now everybody can get at her because she cannot fight back, subordinated. It's really, really scary and really gross. It already happens to 11-year-old and this is the worst insight you can do. I mean, back in my schools it was son of a B ... and nowadays it's Opfer. Very gross, but good example for the shadow energy. It's also an integral part of conspiracy theories, right? I'm a victim, so I can fight back. Good. Next slide, please. We're solely done. Number 5, a willingness to step on others to achieve one's own end. And the 2 next slides, one please. I always showed when I gave leadership talks back at Game Duel times for my team, because I have always heavily emphasized the leader approach and not the boss approach, because then people trust you, they go with you, you know that you're part of the team and you're just protecting and shielding the people behind you because you're responsible for them to a certain degree, right? And not just like, go there, do this, and then I will tell how great of a boss I am because you did all the work. Next one. And also very nice to see in the matter of same topic, but a little bit nicer because somebody falls here. It shows nicely that if you're not acting correctly and somebody is just being on top, winning the red race, still being the red, instead of helping all together, and maybe we'll get slower, but everybody will benefit from it. Because everybody's being taken care of, and if everybody's being taken care of, you get good connections, good surroundings. It's a way healthier environment instead of one guy made it and the rest are like falling down from the mountain. Yeah. Number 6, unacknowledged biases and prejudices. They blind us to certain things if it gets too harshly. And also here, it fills a need, and this is also important for survival because people form assumptions about others based on their appearance all the time. You cannot help like this. You see somebody and you should open up this thing, drawers, he must be that, he must be this. It happens very subconsciously. The question is how much do you act on it? And it's useful, right? If somebody comes along with a knife, bloody eyes, then you should not think, oh, I'm very, very diplomatic and I'm not judging right away, because you should judge sometimes if there's a threat. But if it gets toxic and the prejudice gets too far, then you get blinded by them. Yes. How does this work? Just recently we also had on LEAP course which was called cognitive bias, and now I'm just trying to explain shortly how it works and how it relates to the shadow. So our brain loves consistency or coherence. So our brain just hates to waste energy all the time. Think about this again, back in tribal times, you never know when you need the energy. So it's not that you can just waste it like you want, because could be a tiger around, could be some danger around, and then you need the energy to just get away. So this is one of the preconditions to understand why the brain loves coherence and is so eager about questioning like all the time. Do I need to waste energy? Do I need to waste energy? Because is there a reason for it? Is a better reason for this? So can I get more resources and stuff like that? So we always go for low energy consumption as long as you don't have a reason to really use it. And one of the books I also mentioned in the 10% time from Daniel Kahneman, which is top 10 must read from Harvard University, is Thinking Fast and Slow. And this fast is exactly this, on an impulse, not wasting energy, just directly deciding from a gut feeling, and only if it's important and you need some more rational thinking, then it goes into the slow thinking, which costs energy. Okay. Please.
Right?
I think okay. And there you can see how your worldview is being built up. Oh yeah, we're still on time. Religion, tradition, life experiences. So these are your core beliefs. Core beliefs is very important to know. It's not only a belief like, yeah, I like banana juice, but rather like, this is how the world works, this is how gravity works, I'm religious, I'm non-religious, I'm an atheist or whatever. And as soon as a new piece is going to be introduced, which will challenge your core beliefs, I just love how it's being displayed. As you can really imagine the sound of this weird thing where your brain is not understanding what's coming at it. It's like what is that? Like, it's totally weird. And if it needs to fit in, because you cannot reject that knowledge to some degree, because you have been in wartime and you committed something very bad, or your intimate relationship breaks up and you just cannot understand at all why, and then you need to cope with that information. You need to integrate it in your overall concept and in your core beliefs, because the situation is there anyway. It's being forced on you, and then may happen that your referential system, your hierarchical value system, how you perceive the world will break down. So if somebody is very religious and all of a sudden he reads a lot about science and he thinks like, whoa, maybe I was wrong. So this is can be a very traumatizing event if it gets forced on you, if you don't voluntarily challenge it. It can get very dangerous. So because that means you haven't conceptualized the world in a way which was sufficient enough to keep you afloat when drama and terror and the apocalypse hits in. So your mind runs wide. It tries to understand all the time. This is post-traumatic stress disorder. It comes up all the time. Why does that happen? Where does it come from? Understand. I need to understand, because it's so traumatic, so painful, and I need to avoid it for the future. So every time something is in your mind that comes up all the time again, then that is something where your core beliefs have been shaken to the core, that maybe your mental house collapsed. And again, what does the brain do if the new concept comes? It tries to kill it with swords over fire. That's the impulse. Like, if it does not get forced on you, and you can somehow dispense it, like, yeah, no, it's I still believe in God, I still do whatever your core belief is. Really, it does not matter. It's not about right or wrong. It's like how your brain conceptualizes it. And there's a nice saying in an abstract which was called, you can't neither remember nor forget what you don't understand. Again, this is the post-traumatic stress disorder sense, in a way that your memories get blurred because it was so traumatic that you experienced it, and you cannot forget it, because your brain remembers you all the time in order to be prepared for the next drama and terror that comes. It needs to conceptualize it, build a new house, so to say. Okay. but if you're able to discard it in full, and some people are really cannot, like, oops, doesn't matter, proof, there's so much proof for my, to prove that my worldview is actually really wrong. Some are that strong and can still dispense it and build a fence, build a house, and like, no, he's an infidel, I can kill him and doesn't matter. And for example, if you're really, really fundamental, really extremist guys, they have a conceptualized worldview like this. Yeah, won't sustain you, and it won't sustain you if change really hits you. And one example I need to give because it's actually too hilarious. I was thinking about it really, I mentioned this. I lost a friend due to conspiracy theories. Was a really good friend of mine. Grew up with him and everything. And when internet hits in and he became an anti-Semite, he became a full-blown out Nazi in a sense. Like, can't you see the Jews are responsible for everything and it's a financial system and can't you see? This totally extremist view of the modern stupid YouTube videos. Yeah, and he's black. A black Nazi. So can you imagine that he really was able to dispense, like, I don't think you had a particularly nice, good time in the Third Reich. No, it's Jews and what Hitler does was really, really good. Like, you know that you, like, you know, so that's not particular. But that's so, how strong the mind can get to really just find the things in your worldview which confirm it and dispense everything else. Okay. Last example, make it quite short, Messiah complex. Russell Brand himself called him like this for a certain time. It's if you only purely focus on the light, only on the good side, not encapsulate any darkness like gurus and I will show you the way to the light and only by showing you the best stuff of your parts. Happens also often in the health industry system that people feel so bad about themselves and they think, oh, but I must be a good person because I'm helping other people. Yeah. Good, finale. Let's go to the end. Let's forget what does it all mean. So all of these behaviors, they all can be summed up that you reject it and then you project it. Because what we repress never stays repressed. It goes into the unconscious, into the darkness, into the 90% you're not aware of. And despite what your ego would have used to achieve, the unconscious mind is the one really running the show. So that even if you think you're in control and your ego is in control, it's the unconscious mind. And although our unconscious minds are avoiding our own flaws, they still want to deal with them on a deeper level. So that is why the shadow is there in a sense. So there is a real utility in use in that, like this constant questions which comes up. So we magnify those flaws also in others. So it's so much easier to see and project like, yeah, because of you I became that way and you show me that way. And this is how you can really be broken down and summed up how it happens or how it works out, the process, if you cannot accept something in yourself. And that means, I love that quote, this projection happens, and Alexander Solzhenitsyn really nicely summed up how this projection is hurting us. If it all were so simple, if only there were evil people somewhere insidiously committing evil deeds, and it were necessary only to separate them from the rest of us and destroy them. But the line dividing good and evil cuts through the heart of every human being. And who is willing to destroy a piece of his own heart? Light and darkness. Again. Only individuation is possible if you bring both aspects of your psychology together, like unify your own heart, go into the individuation and reach your true self in a mature and healthy way. That can be done only by acceptance. Because we cannot change anything until we accept it. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses. That's the only way you won't reject stuff and project stuff. And if you push down all the negative stuff, it costs a lot of energy. Because it comes up all the time, right? As I explained. In order to suppress these kinds of constantly your own worldview challenging concepts is stressful. It wears you out. It drags you out. It costs emotional and energy. And once you're really weak, Like you're stressed out, you may be super annoyed by things, and then when people easily snap, and then it jumps down, the thin ice we are all walking on breaks, and all hell may break loose. Surely many of people in your life would have recognized it, maybe in yourself or in other people. Then somebody got really stressed, and then this one thing where it was nothing, but it made the last crack in the ice he was walking on and went down to hell. And Jung also meant it that way. The roots of your shadow, they reach all the way down to hell. Now the big finale. The big finale comes now. Now let's sum this all up. Any questions until here now? No? Then let's really, everything I said, I try now to encapsulate and also make you understand and give you some kind of tools in handling how to find yourself in a way, or like how I was able to. So right, I'm not a health coach or nothing, I just can say what I learned, what helped me, and how I like to bring it across and talk about. So unfortunately, there can be no doubt that man is, on the whole, less good than he imagines himself or wants to be. But there's a flip side to this. So the capacity of evil can be counteracted with the capacity for good. So you can be really bad, but you can also be really good. As Jung stated, a tree which branches wants to reach heaven needs to have roots down to hell. Otherwise cannot be strong enough. Will flip. But only if it's really founded in its own darkness, in its own hellish way, so to say, it can reach the highest goods. And every one of us carries a shadow. The less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. So the more you push it away, the blacker it gets. But as I already stated in the 10% time, if you don't make the unconscious conscious, you will call it fate and it will direct your life. And now the good news. If an inferiority, if something bad from you and an inferiority is conscious, one always has a chance to correct it. And now we're going back to the iceberg model, right? If you know how it looks like and how these things work, then you have a chance to correct it. Because furthermore, it is constantly in contact with other interests, so that it's continually subject to modifications. And what does that mean? So when we accept our shadow and seek to unlock the wisdom it contains, fear can become an opportunity for courage. Pain can become a catalyst for strength and resilience. Aggression is transmuted into warrior-like passion. And the wisdom informs our actions and our decisions, just like in the yin and yang, the information of each domain. And our interactions with others will get better. We understand how others feel and respond to them with compassion, and knowing that they are being triggered too. But if it's repressed and isolated from consciousness, it will never get corrected. As I stated, if you are not aware of it, if you don't accept it and you oppress it, then destruction can never become construction. Or in just simple plain words, no, the last slide. I forgot the last slide, sorry. How would it look like if you really imagined, sorry, now I messed up the ending, but if you imagine that if you really would do that, then somebody who's brave enough to withdraw all his projections, then you get an individual who is conscious of a pretty thick shadow. Such a man has saddled himself with new problems and conflicts, like who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes, as I stated in the 10% time. And how would that look like? That person has become a serious problem to himself, as he is now unable to say that they do this or that, and they are wrong, and they must be fought against. And now the finale, in short words, save your shadow self, save the world. Thank you. Messed up the ending, anyway.